Warning: this video contains content created using AI. AI is not everyone's cup of tea. If it is not your cup of tea, don't drink it. In February 2025, the G.I. Joe leadership announced that they had put a plan in place to increase their defense in the North by improving their recruitment of drivers for their most vital cold attack vehicle, the Snowcat. To keep up with force modernization requirements, the Joe team directed the recruitment team to specifically search for female recruits with the best experience to enable them to work in the Alaskan area of operations. Frostbite, working with Covergirl, personally oversaw the recruitment boards in search of females ready to devote their careers and lives in support of G.I. Joe. These are the successful candidates that as of April 2025 have been initiated into the Green Shirt program. Raised on the rugged, wind-battered shores of Resurrection Bay, Valerie Haynes was born with the spirit of the wild running through her veins. The icy waters and towering fjords of Kenai were her playground, and the untamed beauty of the land taught her early on how to survive in the harshest of conditions. While most kids stayed indoors during the long winters, Valerie was out in the elements, building fires from frozen driftwood, navigating through blizzards, and learning to read the land like a second language. In her teenage years, she became something of a local legend in Seward. During the annual Mount Marathon race, an infamously grueling climb and descent up a steep, rocky mountain, tourists would be shocked to find a young girl running effortlessly alongside them. Not in the race, but with it. Never once did she officially register. She didn't need a medal to prove what she already knew. The mountain was hers. On her 18th birthday, Valerie traded in her trail runners for combat boots and enlisted in the U.S. Army. Assigned to the 1st Brigade Combat Team, 25th Infantry Division, the Arctic Wolves, it was as if the Army had unknowingly called her home. The cold, she laughed at it. The terrain? Child's play. Her fellow soldiers quickly dubbed her the girl to beat in every PT test, and no one could touch her on ruck marches or obstacle courses. But it was the day she took the wheel of an all-terrain vehicle that her destiny changed. Introduced to the ATV world by a fellow transport specialist during a downtime training exercise, Valerie immediately showed a natural instinct. While others struggled with tight maneuvers, she danced with the machine, racing through frozen tundra like it was an extension of her own body. Command took notice, and soon she was leading high-risk reconnaissance and rapid response missions deep in the Arctic backcountry, where vehicles couldn't normally go, unless she was the one driving. Valerie earned the call sign Ghost Wolf after an ambush in the Yukon training area left her team surrounded and cut off. With radio silence and night falling fast, she navigated an unmarked glacial ravine in zero-visibility snow, leading a convoy through enemy fire and bringing every soldier home. Witnesses said all they saw was a blur, a low hum in the wind, and then she was gone. Today, Sergeant Haynes is more than a soldier. She's a living myth among the Arctic Wolves, a symbol of grit, instinct, and raw northern spirit. For Valerie, the Army was never about medals or ranks. It was about pushing limits, protecting her pack, and staying true to the wilderness that shaped her. Now a seasoned sergeant and unit pathfinder, Valerie trains the next generation of Arctic warriors. Her cold weather field manuals are used in special ops training across the U.S. Army. Rumors persist that she's being scouted for a Tier 1 unit, or that she might already be part of one. But ask her, and she'll just smile and say, "I go where the snow falls hardest."
Valerie's got the kind of face that makes people assume things before she even speaks. And in this line of work, that's a double-edged blade. She's pretty, yeah, and some folks think that's a shortcut to an easier ride. What they don't see is how she works twice as hard just to be taken seriously. In our world, beauty can be camouflage, but the wrong kind. I've watched men underestimate her, flirt with her, question her qualifications before they even know her name. And every time, she shuts it all down without raising her voice or losing her cool. She doesn't complain, doesn't bite. She just outperforms them, quietly, brutally. I told her once, "You don't have to prove you belong. You already do." But she just looked at me and said, "Yeah, but I want to prove I lead." That's when I knew. She's not just a good soldier. She's one of us, forged in fire, not favored by it.
I've driven everything from Humvees in Baghdad to snowcats and polar bears in the Arctic, And I'll tell you right now, I ain't ever seen anyone handle a vehicle like Haynes. She doesn't just drive. She hunts in that seat. Have you ever seen a wolf cutting across ice? Fast and quiet like it's got a purpose? That's her behind the wheel. We're going up against Cobra Commander, a man who controls terrain with drones, traps, and chaos. We need someone who can cut through all that, find the gaps, and carve a path before the rest of us even see it. Haynes is that. She won't just be a driver, she'll be a damn spearhead. You can drop tech, armor, even air support. But if Haynes is in a rig with an engine and enough fuel to burn, we've got the edge. She'll get us in, get us out, and if she's feeling generous, she'll leave Cobra's toys smoking behind us. Mark my words, when this war story gets told, it'll start with the sound of her engine kicking up ice and hell behind it. Vivica Janot grew up far from the noise of the world in Petersburg, Alaska, a coastal fishing town steeped in Norwegian heritage and stubborn tradition. With her dark hair, quiet demeanor, and unfamiliar features, she stood out from the other kids early. They whispered, asked questions she didn't have answers to. Only her adoptive parents knew the truth, and they never told her. But what Vivica did know was this: she could drive. Whether it was threading her family's fishing boat through fog-soaked fjords or hauling tons of frozen fish down icy logging roads in a rig 10 times her size, she made impossible maneuvers look easy. Behind a wheel, the noise faded. The doubts disappeared. She wasn't different, she was unmatched. Though her parents hoped she'd stay in Petersburg, Vivica had other plans. She didn't know where she came from, but she knew where she was headed. The army, heavy vehicles, a chance to become something that no one could question. She crushed basic training and was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 52nd Aviation Regiment, where she quickly earned a reputation as calm under pressure and unervingly good at navigating tight terrain in massive troop transports. Her reward? She became personal driver to the battalion's commanding officer, a high-trust role usually reserved for senior troops. But Vivica wanted more. One night, after a rough convoy op in sub-zero temperatures, she asked him bluntly, "What's the biggest, baddest vehicle you've ever seen, and how do I drive it?" The CO paused, then smiled. "I've got a friend. Drives stuff that isn't supposed to exist." He made a call. The next day, Vivica vanished from the manifest. No paperwork, no reassignment orders, nothing. She had been recruited into the top-secret G.I. Joe Green Shirt program. They gave her the codename Winter, a nod to her home, her cold resolve, and her ability to stay cool where others cracked. I couldn't believe my damn luck. My old buddy from the 52nd rings me up one night, tells me he's got someone who can drive the devil's go-kart out of hell. His words, not mine, and asks if I've got room on the roster. I figured it was a joke. Nobody just gives you top-shelf drivers. Not in this line of work. You either dig M out of combat wreckage or raise M yourself over 5 cold years and 4 busted transmissions. But then she shows up, maybe 5 feet 5 inches in boots, quiet as a stalled engine, and eyes like a damn permafrost storm. I thought it was a prank, right up until she put that crawler in gear. I've been behind wheels since Desert Storm. I've seen tanks dance and trucks die. But I've never seen someone handle a 9-ton recovery rig through glacial fractures like it was a Sunday drive. She doesn't drive like us. She communicates with the machine, talks to it in that cold way, like they share secrets we're not meant to know. You don't train someone like that. You find them. If she's the devil's driver, I'm just glad she's on our side.
They call her Winter, huh? The quiet one who makes machines dance across ice like it's ballet. Yeah, I've heard the stories. Everyone has. I've been in tanks longer than some lieutenants have been alive. I've driven through sandstorms in Iraq and snowstorms in Estonia. You name it, I've punched through it with 70 tons of American steel. So when they told me we had this new girl, small, silent, and supposedly able to thread a vehicle through a frozen needles, I didn't roll my eyes, but I didn't salute either. Thing is, I don't believe in legends until I see them drive. Stories are nice. Tread marks are better. But I want to see her work. Because if half of what I've heard is true, if she really can take those beasts where even drones give up, then she's not just a driver. She's something rarer. Someone machines listen to. And if that's the case, I say let her climb into my Wolverine. Let's see what she can do with a real monster. I'll be watching, and hell, if she impresses me, I might just let her drive it again.
Ness Oldsmith wasn't raised among snowdrifts or towering pines. She came up between smokestacks, rusted-out frame shops, and streets slick with oil. Detroit was her forge, and machinery was her first language. While other kids were playing video games, Ness was under the hood of old Chevys, her hands black with grease and her eyes locked in the kind of focus that only true gearheads know. Her father, a former Army mechanic turned local legend, ran a garage in their East Side neighborhood. He didn't coddle her. He handed her a wrench when she was 6 and said, "Figure it out," and she did. By 12, she could rebuild a transmission solo. By 15, she was tuning engines to hum like war drums. She wasn't just a mechanic, she understood machines. Like they spoke to her, and she answered in torque and grit. Ness never dreamed of joining the military. She had plans. Open her own shop, build street monsters from scrap, maybe race on the side. But Detroit was getting tighter, tougher, money was thin, and so was opportunity. Her father, who had seen the world from inside the army, sat her down one night and said, "You want to build monsters, Ness? The army's got bigger ones. And they move." It wasn't a dream, but it was a way out. She enlisted, expecting to fix Humvees in dusty hangars, maybe drive someone her sergeant wasn't looking. But that's not what happened. Somehow, somewhere, someone pulled strings. Ness got shipped north, way north, Fort Wainwright, Alaska, home to the most brutal cold weather operations unit in the Army. "This must be a mistake," she muttered when she stepped off the plane and her breath froze in midair. But it wasn't. This was no accident. Word had already spread of a Detroit girl who could rebuild engines blindfolded and drive machines like they were part of her nervous system. Someone high up, maybe someone who owed her father a favor, made sure she ended up exactly where her skills could be weaponized. In the Arctic, everything breaks. Tires lock, engines freeze, transmissions seize. But not when Ness was on duty. She turned cold into power and terrain into challenge. She started by maintaining the unit's heaviest transports, strikers, MRAPs, and experimental crawlers designed for snow and ice. But when a blizzard knocked out an entire forward unit during an exercise, Ness grabbed the wheel of a recovery vehicle, loaded her own toolbox, and drove solo through 50 miles per hour winds and whiteout conditions. She fixed 3 dead engines on the fly, towed a disabled troop carrier with a busted axle, and got every last soldier home. The mission report called her unflinching under hail. The name stuck. So did the respect. She was given the codename Hail, because when she rolls in, something's coming, and it's going to hit hard. Now, Hail isn't just fixing machines. She's commanding them. In missions against the Northern Assault Force, when enemy mechs cut off supply routes and air support is grounded by storms, it's Hail who leads the mechanized countercharges. She doesn't just drive the machines. She rebuilds them mid-battle, turns wrecks into war chariots, and pushes where no map says a vehicle should go. In Operation Frosthook, she took command of a stranded armored unit, rerouted power from dead tanks into one working engine, and led a blitz through enemy lines with a flame-spitting war rig she built from scraps. That wasn't just survival. That was engineering warfare. Hale isn't your usual hero. She doesn't give speeches. She doesn't care about medals. She cares about torque, timing, and making sure no one gets left behind. Her hands are always dirty. Her machines are always louder than her words. And when she shows up in the snow, wrapped in steel and rumbling engines, the enemy knows one thing. Something's coming, and it won't stop for anything.
I like Hale. She's one straight-up girl. No fluff, no fakery. If she doesn't like you, she'll tell you to your face. But it won't be something soft like, "I don't like you." Oh no, it'll cut. Something like, "Maybe you should join the Coast Guard. They let anyone in these days, right?" I've seen a lot of green shirts come and go. Plenty of them know how to follow orders, shine boots, and run laps. But Hale, she's got something different, grit and grease under her fingernails. Mechanically, she outperforms them all. Easily. She doesn't baby the vehicles, but she doesn't break them either. She knows them, like they're part of her. She's not as fit as some of the newer recruits, sure. She's not trying to win any etiquette awards either. But if I had to send someone out in a tracked recovery vehicle alone across hostile terrain, I'd give Hale the keys, tell her good luck, and not worry for a second. If that rig breaks down, Hale, fix it with whatever's in the glove box and a half-charged radio. Then she'll be back at base by mess, probably smelling like diesel and bragging about it. She's not delicate. She's dependable. And in our line of work, that counts for more than any polished salute.
Not many people outside this room know this, including Hale, but her old man? He used to be my #1 go-to mechanic for Snowcat Team 6. That's right, her dad was a Joe. A damn good one too. Quiet type, didn't care for medals, but when a tread snapped or an engine block froze solid at 40 below, he was the guy who got it moving again. You want to talk about trust? I once took a Snowcat into a blizzard so thick the GPS just gave up because he told me it'd make it. And it did. Now, imagine Hale finding out that her dad wasn't just some army wrench turner back in Detroit. He was one of the 3 best mechanics that ever served with G.I. Joe. That bloodline runs deep. As far as I'm concerned, if Hale performs even half as well as her father did and gets her Snowcat driving up to standard, we won't have a single issue. She's already one tough nut. Tougher than most green shirts walking in here with spotless boots and no field instincts. What do I see in Hale? I see potential, real potential. She's raw, sure, a bit rough around the edges, but so were we when we started. She just needs the right rig, the right weather, and someone willing to let her prove it. That girl's gonna move mountains, or at least crush them with a Snowcat. Libby Riddles didn't come up through the usual pipeline. She didn't hit ROTC straight out of high school. She didn't spend her teens in cadet camps or her early 20s in simulators. Up until her 23rd birthday, Libby was behind the bar at the Salty Dog Saloon in Homer, Alaska, slinging beers, dodging fights, and dragging full-grown fishermen out the door by their jackets when they got too rowdy. She didn't look like much at first glance. Slight frame, easy grin, soft-spoken voice. But anyone who thought fragile had never watched her throw a drunk out into a snowbank, then clock in for her real passion. Racing ATVs at midnight over ice, gravel, and frozen dirt trails like her life depended on it. Libby didn't just ride machines. She understood them. The way they breathed, the way they bucked, the way they cried out when they were being pushed past their limits. And she always pushed them. But here's the thing, her machines never broke down. Not once. Her engines ran so tight and clean it was like they knew better than to let her down. It was one of these late-night ATV races, a near-illegal, off-grid sprint through treacherous backcountry, that caught the eye of an off-duty G.I. Joe scout from cold weather recon. He didn't know who she was, just saw a streak of blue light tearing through a snowstorm at speeds that would have killed most people. When he tracked her down to the Salty Dog the next day, she was pouring beers like nothing happened, and had already rebuilt her engine block before breakfast. Joining the military wasn't part of her plan, but when she did, she went all in. Libby enlisted and was quickly shipped to Company D, 25th Aviation Regiment. On paper, she was just a new wrench turner in the motor pool. In practice, she had the entire vehicle lineup purring like prize-winning show dogs. She tuned transports so precisely that mechanics from other bases started driving out just to see what she was doing. Her rigs weren't just fast, they were efficient, impossible to kill, and ran like they had personalities. It didn't hurt that Libby, now called Icy Blue for her signature frosty attitude and that dead calm composure, stood behind every engine she built. If it broke, she fixed it. If it needed driving through a hell zone, she volunteered. And if anyone thought she wasn't strong enough, she'd let them try lifting a 200-pound snow chain transmission solo like she could. The real game changer came during an Arctic maneuver gone wrong. A transport column got trapped by a Cobra ambush in whiteout conditions. Radio silence. No GPS. Only one shot at an extraction. A small, fast vehicle through impossible terrain. Guess who stepped up? Icy Blue rebuilt a disabled snow skimmer in under 2 hours using salvaged parts, rewired the NAV console on instinct, and drove blind into enemy-controlled ground. Then came back with the entire stranded team and 2 Cobra bikes chained to the back. After that, the Joe Brass had one question. Why isn't she one of us already? She was fast-tracked into the G.I. Joe Green Shirt program. Now, Icy Blue is the name you hear when the wheels stop spinning, when the engine dies in the cold, when the extraction point is across frozen hell. She's not loud. She doesn't bark orders. But when she slides her goggles down and kicks her ride into gear, you get in, hold tight, and pray to whatever you believe in that you can keep up. Icy Blue. Yeah, she's the kind I'd want either in the cockpit next to me or rolling a Snowcat on my flank. You get a good feel for people when you've been driving in zero visibility, under fire, with engines screaming and no backup, but your own grit. And she seems like she's not the type to bail when things go sideways. That's what I look for in a teammate. Someone who stays calm when the windshield cracks and the radio goes dead. Icy Blue's got that kind of steel under the surface. Doesn't make a lot of noise about it, but it's there. I've watched her work, the way she tunes her vehicles, the way she reads the terrain before even stepping on the throttle. That ain't just talent. That's instinct. Natural-born driver, and one hell of a wrench. But here's the thing. I also think she's more dangerous than she lets on. There's something behind those goggles. Not reckless, not loud, just ready. Like she's been in more fights than she talks about. And she's still got one more in the tank. Give her a Snowcat and a mission worth the fuel. I'll be her wingman into any storm.
Icy Blue. Yeah, she seems like the kind of girl sailors avoid in a pub. Not because she's trouble, but because she's probably smarter than them and could outdrink M and outdrive them in the same night. She's sharp, real sharp, knows how to use everything around her. Tools, terrain, timing. That kind of adaptability's rare. I've seen green shirts with perfect scores fold under pressure because they didn't know how to think on the move. She's already thinking 3 moves ahead. But look, all that matters in the end is what she can do behind the wheel of one of those cats. The Snowcats aren't toys. They're beasts. Unforgiving, heavy, loud, and angry. They don't care how pretty your last performance review was. She handles those ATVs like they're part of her nervous system, but the Snowcat's a different beast. It's not about finesse. It's about knowing when to push, when to pull back, and when to ram through a snowdrift like it owes you money. She's got potential, and I like potential. But until I see her tear through a wideout at 50 knots with fire coming in from the left, we'll have to wait and see.
G.I. Joe official records regarding Raven only go back 1 year. There's no birth certificate on file, no high school transcripts, no listed place of origin. Her entry into the database came via a top clearance handoff from a deep black department known only to a handful of senior commanders. Everything else, redacted. Her name, Tamara Strongarm, may not even be real. But what is known is this. Raven is not new to the skies. She didn't learn to fly in the Army. She didn't go through standard training. She arrived with skills that raised alarms and turned heads. Flight path prediction algorithms, evasive maneuver coding, aerial combat telemetry. She knew it all before her boots hit the hangar floor. When Raven first arrived at the Forward Aerial Command Facility in Cold Sector 7, she requested no orientation, no briefing, and refused a co-pilot. She took a stripped-down, prototype vertical assault craft on a test flight that was never approved, and returned 3 hours later with a full map of enemy drone patterns, an intercepted Cobra signal core, and a casual note that read, "This bird flies better with her claws out." No one said a word. Command just stamped her file operational.
The introduction of Raven into the program? Yeah, that was weird. Real weird. We got a short, red stamp memo that said something like, "Exceptional pilot. Fast-track Snowcat familiarization. No questions. No rank, no background, no service record attached. Just her code name, and that she was cleared above my pay grade. That kind of thing doesn't happen unless someone very high up wants it that way. What gets me, though, Raven might be new to driving Snowcats, but she already knows things about Cobra that most of us only learn after a few battles. I mean, really knows them. Their vehicle layouts, their retreat patterns, even the weird, encrypted radio slang some of their drivers use. That's not briefing room knowledge. That's experience. And the way she talks about Cobra Commander, OL Coco, as I like to call him, yeah, there's some heat behind it. Like it's personal. She doesn't say much, but when the name comes up, I've seen her jaw tighten like she's clenching steel. As for the Snowcat, look, she's used to flying birds with more controls than a small spacecraft. So I'm not worried about her handling the mechanics. What'll be interesting is seeing how she deals with traction and terrain. The Snowcat doesn't glide, it grinds. It doesn't soar, it survives. But if she brings even half of that killer instinct from the sky down into the snow, well, Cobra might want to start building bunkers underground.
There's something about this whole thing with Raven that just doesn't sit right. I mean, I've been running Snowcat training for years. We don't usually get surprise drop-ins from the classified files. So when they told us we were supposed to train her, no background, no service history, just a name and a specialty listed as aviation. Well, that's just plain weird. No explanation. No context. Just train her like she's one of us. And then to top it all off, who walks her into the training bay on day one? Slipstream. Not some CO, not a desk jockey. Slipstream, like they were best friends. You don't get that kind of chaperone unless you've got a history or some serious pull. Look, I'm not trying to be the suspicious old-timer in the room, but I've seen what happens when someone gets fast-tracked into an elite program with no transparency. Either they're a deep asset, or they're being watched just as closely as they're being trained. That said, Raven's no rookie behind controls. She doesn't just learn fast, she adapts. There's a difference. She gets the Snowcat's weight, its drift, the way the tread bites into terrain. You don't pick that up in a week, unless you already know how to feel a vehicle. She doesn't talk much, keeps her cards close. But when she's in the seat, she's focused. Cold, like she's flown worse missions in worse weather, and knows exactly how bad things can get. I don't know where she came from. I don't know what she did. But I do know this. If she brings that same intensity she had in the sim room out into the field, we've either got one hell of a Snowcat Driver, or someone with a very specific reason for wanting to join the fight against Cobra. Born and raised in Peoria, Illinois, Becky Krieger grew up in the long shadow of her older sister, the now legendary Courtney Covergirl Krieger. Where other kids had movie stars on their walls, Becky had pictures of tanks, tread patterns, and field manuals her sister left behind. From the moment she could walk, she was drawn to horsepower, engines, and anything that roared across the dirt. But unlike Courtney, Becky never wanted the spotlight. Not in fashion, not in photo shoots, not in fame. She respected what her sister had done, but modeling wasn't her scene. Dance was. She trained in ballet, modern, and even street styles. Not because it was glamorous, but because it gave her total control of her body, her balance, and her timing. While Covergirl learned to maneuver steel beasts with brute power, Becky focused on finesse, agility over armor. That dancer's instinct translated perfectly to lightweight military vehicles. Snow runners, turbo sleds, scout rigs, anything that could weave between enemy fire instead of crush it head-on. Her instructors quickly took note of how she moved with the machine, not just driving it, but feeling it. Every acceleration, every skid, every tight corner looked less like standard military operation and more like an improvised performance. She drives like she's choreographing a battle scene, one senior instructor said. Makes it look like a blizzard's got rhythm. When the Snowcat Arctic Ops program began evaluating new drivers, Becky's name came up quickly. Initially, there was hesitation. 2 Krieger sisters, same program, same battlefield, but then Frostbite was given the file. He read it, nodded once, and said, "Who better to trust than family? 2 talented sisters are better than one. And if Becky drives anything like she dances, she might be the most dangerous thing in the snow besides the storm itself." Where Covergirl brought overwhelming force and technical mastery to armored ground combat, Becky brought speed, reflex, and unpredictability. She wasn't there to replace her sister. She was there to flank the enemy while they were watching her sister's tank. Though comparisons to Covergirl were inevitable, Becky never let the pressure define her. Her biggest breakthrough came during a joint operation in the Arctic frontier, when Cobra launched a coordinated blitz to capture an abandoned research facility holding next-gen thermal propulsion tech. Covergirl's team drew the main force, but it was Becky, out on routine ops the same day, executed a nearly impossible high-speed flank through an ice canyon, made it behind Cobra lines, disabled their transport rigs, and exfiltrated 3 hostages without a scratch. "I didn't have to break through their lines," she said afterward. "I just found the one line they forgot to watch." In the field, the Krieger sisters are something of a legend. Covergirl is the hammer, Centerfold is the scalpel. They never argue about strategy. They already know what the other's thinking. When they're operating in sync, it's like a tactical ballet. One thundering forward, the other slipping through the chaos unseen. I still haven't decided if I'm comfortable with Courtney having command and control over her little sister. Don't get me wrong, both Covergirl and Becky are solid operators, no question. But we all know how sisters are. They don't just argue. They can go from zero to Cold War over the smallest thing. And when you've got both of them sitting in weaponized vehicles with live ammo, let's just say it's not the kind of sibling rivalry I want playing out in the middle of a combat op. That said, I've seen Becky drive. She's got something different. She's got grace. Real finesse. The kind of control you don't teach, just refine. And when she's not looking at her sister sideways, she's dangerous in the best way. I guess we'll just have to see what happens when the snow kicks up, the comms go down, and it's just the two of them out there. Either they'll win the war, or Cobra'll get front row seats to the most tactical family feud in history.
Look, having Becky in the same program as me? Yeah, I've got opinions. First off, she's a damn good driver. Better than people give her credit for. She's not trying to be me, and thank God for that. One of me is enough. She's quicker, smoother, and probably braver in tighter spots. But let's be real, she's still my kid sister. And yeah, we've butted heads more times than I can count. You should have seen our garage growing up. More busted tools and shouted, "You're doing it wrong," than a motor pool on a Monday. That said, I trust her. Completely. I wouldn't want anyone else watching my six in a whiteout. She knows how I think. I know how she drives. When things go sideways, we don't need comms, just a glance. That kind of connection, you can't train it. The brass might worry about sibling rivalry. But I say this, if you're gonna throw someone into the snow with me, make it someone who grew up learning how to dodge a flying wrench and still have my back. Becky's not here because of me. She's here because she earned it.